Well, hello Crosskart fans. Today we're going to continue working on the VF-1. Now, I told you I was going to make this one race compliant, and one of the things, as expressly mentioned in the plans, is that this requires one more cross member to meet the regulations for the NEZ Crosskart Championship. I don't include it in the plans because I use this area for the radiator. I use the technical direction just to help make this safe, not because I'm making race cars. And we're gonna add a cross member right here. It's gonna look like this. This is gonna be the AD004 example of an allowable main roll bar. So you start by taking your measurement. Now, since you may have this cross member in a different place, since you may have these in a different place and everything still work out, you want to measure this. Now you want to measure to the center of this joint and the center of this joint to leave room for your notches. So mine is 29.5 inches. So that's where you start with just your straight cuts. All right, I've got my 29.5 inch piece of DOM. Now that brings up a good point. My chassis are made with drawn over mandrel or DOM tubing. The race rules specifically require DOM tubing, and you're not going to find any race series that will allow seamed ERW tubing. Now, when you put a lot of power and a human being inside a vehicle, you need that to be safe. So race regulations keep those people safe, and race regulations demand DOM tubing. Now, interesting fact that I just learned a couple days ago is that Crosskart and the European challenges of all this stuff has never suffered a fatality. Now, hopefully that's true. That was from a person, not from a news source or anything, but he said that they've never suffered a fatality. And it's because of those race rules and those race regulations that are keeping people safe. So something as simple as using DOM tubing over ERW tubing is just a good idea. So we've got our 29.5 inch piece. Now we got to start figuring out how to notch it. And this is going to be a double notch, which means we're going to notch one for this side and we're going to notch one for this tube. So we're going to run it through the notcher twice. So let's start with drawing our center line. All right, so once you get your piece in position, you're going to take an angle finder. Now these are super handy. I recommend you get one. They're inexpensive and they are invaluable. Now we can see we've got an angle of 30, 150, and 60. All of those line up on a radius, so we just have to match the one that makes sense up to our notcher and cut that notch. All right, now when putting it in your notcher, this is the degree that makes sense to me, which is 30 degrees off of 90 per how the scale is on my notcher. So we don't need to cut all the way through this tubing because we're making two notches. The other one is going to come in laterally like this. So line it up, take at least half the tube off, and we're notching this 4.5 inch tubing, so 1.5 inch hole saw. All right, so now you want to measure up your second notch. Make sure your reference line is vertical. Slide your angle finder in, and this looks like it's 35, 125, or 55, whichever one makes sense. Now, I know you don't like me saying whatever makes sense, so what you can do to help find what makes sense is take this line and just transpose it onto here. We want to go about halfway through this notch, and we want to align this. So when your hole saw is aligned with this line, whichever one of those three numbers makes sense for this is going to make this a double fish mouth notch, and it's just going to slide in there nicely. All right, once you have that notch cut, you can test fit it. And as you can see, it slides right in there. There's plenty of weld area, and this is all triangulated. So now to make a tightly fitting cross member, you find your line you made, and that was facing up. Slide that into its tight position up top of your double fish mouth. Now you're going to measure your inside length. So that's the length where the deepest part of your cut or the deepest part of your fish mouth is going to touch this bar. Now, all right, there we go. We've got a double fish mouth there, and we've got a double fish mouth on this end. Now it fits in there, but we've got an issue. This is a triangulated part because of the suspension upright and the rear motor mount. This tube right here coming off there. So we need to cut this ear off the bottom side. We've still got a reference mark. So once we cut that off, it'll just be dropping this in place and welding it in. You slide that in there, fits snugly in there. And there is your complete AD004 roll bar. Oh, it looks kind of cool. Not gonna lie. So now I'm just gonna clean up the ends and tack it in. And there you go, race compliant AD04 chassis.